Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Southern Outdoorsmen Podcast here on a river bottom hunt in deer camp. We got Mark Maher. How are you?
Oh, my God.
Jeez, starting it out like that?
Greg Maher. How are you?
It didn't take long to fire that first shot, did it?
No, it's going to be that kind of podcast. Wes Moye, how are you?
Just fine.
Doing good. Jacob Myers.
Hey, I'm seeing deer, so it's going great.
Yeah. I came down here. I told y'all I'd seen like 4 deer all season in Alabama. And I came here, and the first day I saw 10?
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is why I come here. This is a nice place.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really stepping it up.
I think we've seen, 7 people? We've seen over 60 deer in 2 days.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right. So down here, kind of wolf pack hunting, I guess you'd call it, deer camp. We've had, I guess 7 people hunting in camp this week, and everyone just kind of fans out. Like I said, target-rich environment, high deer density. We've hunted here before. Greg, this is your first time here, isn't it? What's your first impressions?
Man, I like the river bottoms. It looks like, you kind of have a feel like you're in the Midwest, just kind of, I'm used to hunting the hardwood ridges and stuff like that, and you're driving the boat and just looking like, oh, yeah, this looks nice. So you feel like there could be a big deer around the corner anywhere. So
yeah, there could be.
I like it.
Jacob, how would you describe the habitat here? Kind of lay the groundwork.
Big river bottom, diverse cover types, a lot of switch cane thickets, like big switch cane thickets, not like the little short stuff we're used to, like way over your head high, a little mix of briars, some pines, a lot of hardwoods, lots of different oak species. Like we're trying to figure out one that Greg shot his buck under. Not to jump ahead, but Greg did kill a buck. Yep. First Alabama deer's taking a few trips, but hey,
my fourth Alabama trip, finally got it done. So.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about that, but very diverse habitat. It's pretty interesting, whether you're like right down the river bottoms, and also you can see a soil type change too. Like where me and Caden were hunting yesterday, down by the river, it was like a darker, richer soil. We started getting off the river a little bit, and it started going to like a sandy soil, which was interesting. Yeah. I was kind of surprised to see that. But it's also one of those places that you're either in dog hair thick cover or it is wide open.
Yep.
There's not a whole bunch in between. So that's been a big thing that we've been kind of dealing with since being down here. Sloughs, water, still kind of a dry year, so not all the sloughs are completely slat full of water. Some of the deep sloughs are, but some of the smaller little sloughs that you look on aerial imagery that typically would have water, I mean, you can walk across them in tennis shoes now. So, yeah, it's pretty interesting habitat and a lot of deer. Typically some pretty good deer down here. It's been interesting, though. Again, we've been seeing a bunch of deer, and I don't know, it's the most amount of spikes I've ever seen a group of hunters witness seeing in 2 days.
Yeah,
it's insane.
Only 2 legal deer out of all of them. So.
Yeah, out of like 60-something deer, only 2 bucks that were legal, just with antler restrictions and all that kind of stuff. And then Wes seen a massive cow horn spike.
He was a mature deer. He was over a foot long, each one of them, but
big old swelled up neck and body. But no, it's a pretty interesting environment. I've been down here. Every time I've come down here, I've hunted with the U.S. and kind of bounce around hunting different spots. We always joked about on the podcast, and we talked to other people. You've got a big pontoon boat, and it's like D-Day because you load it up with a group of guys, hit the bank, the gate opens, and 1 or 2 guys hops off, and you pull back out, go to the next spot like you're doing beach landings.
They're storming the beaches.
So it's pretty fun. But you didn't bring it this time, so we've got our boat. Y'all you've been in Scott's boat, and then Greg, you brought your boat down here. So our buddy Michael Pike was down here. He left right before we started doing the podcast, but then Michael Perry's down here. So it's been a fun little group of guys going out there trying to find a big river bottom swamp buck. So
hopefully it happens today or cool off again tomorrow. Maybe we'll get one in the morning.
Yeah, and one thing that's been kind of eye opening is, Wes, I'd love to get your thoughts on this, because we're getting some storytelling here as well, but the sparseness of sign, like you'll get in a pocket and you'll find a bunch of sign, and then all of a sudden you could walk, which I know you don't walk a whole bunch down here. A lot of the guys don't, because you hunt pretty close to the water, but it's like you're either in some sign or there's nothing there. But just because there's nothing there doesn't mean there's not deer working through it.
Yeah, they have the travel corridors that they use down here. This place has never really been big about scrapes, and most of the times when you see scrapes, it's the young bucks that really don't know what they're doing. The big boys, over 60 deer in 2 days, they don't have to put out a whole lot. They don't have to put out a lot of sign and all this, this is my territory and things like that, because, they may have 20 does under them. So it's really not necessary. But
And
the
then-
young bucks that don't know what they're doing and hadn't really got into the rut too many times, that's usually ones leaving the scrapes.
Well, that, and then just because there is such a high deer number density down here, it seems like in areas that we've hunted like that, where there's high deer numbers, again, like those mature bucks, they don't have to travel very far just because there's so many does in so many different pockets. So like you really, like you could be in an area that maybe there's a doe group or something there. You're seeing deer, but there's not a lot of sign. And then if you just shift 300 yards in a different direction, you might find a whole bunch of sign of different little doe groups kind of hanging out there.
Well, see, different groups will come in heat. It may be 24-hour difference. And you might, like where we're hunting, the does may have already been bred and already been done, but, well, just across the river, 300-400 yards, there may be another large group of does in heat, and the big bucks are gone. And I think that's what's happening to us right now. They've moved on from the groups that we're hunting, and they're hunting. That's the reason this evening what we're going to do, we're going to change tactics, and we're going to go to a different section, and we're going to try to find where they're chasing.
Yeah. But we didn't preface that, but we are hunting the rut down here, January. There's one cool thing about the Southeast, and we were talking about this, I think maybe yesterday or 2 days ago, is like, Greg, you brought this up. Being from South Carolina, when y'all's rut normally is kind of like October, November time period. Georgia, kind of same thing, November. Like, this is when these guys down here, the locals, just start getting busy. Is January.
Yeah.
It's like, before that, it's kind of like bonus hunting. January is like, oh, we buckling down because it's getting ready for the rut. So
Yeah, that buck I killed by far the latest I've ever killed I killed a buck. I've killed some does in early January in Georgia, but yeah. It's just weird shooting a buck in January to me.
yeah.
That's when I kill all mine.
Yeah.
I may kill one. I may go hunting and kill one like opening day, opening week, and then I'll kind of like goof off a little bit until about December 18th, I'll start kicking in. But if I had to pick a month out of the year, it's always January.
Mm-hmm.
Simply because a lot of hunters have quit. Leaves are off the trees, and in central Alabama and South Alabama, that's when the rut's just starting. So, if I had to pick a month to hunt, it would be January. And down here,
Yeah.
because you might see 50 of those little spikes, and then you have that one lifetime deer come walking through. So,
But you have killed down here. You killed, was it a 174?
yeah, there's some really big ones. I shot one time that run over on some private property, and they didn't let me have that one. They wouldn't let me, I called, done the right thing, called them
Yep.
and all that, and they told me better not be on their land. And we were standing there, and we had blood trailed the deer right up to their line. And I said, well, wait a minute, guys, this thing's going to be Boone and Crockett. This is going to be this is going to be that. Let's call them. And that guy was just really rude, buddy. He told me, he said he'd get trespassing charges on me. If I got the deer, he'd get theft charges on me. So I called the game warden, and he said, well, he's right. We just had to leave it.
And that was after you killed your 174.
9 days.
9 days later.
It was a bigger deer, yeah.
And when you kill a deer like that in Alabama, like people talk and they start rumors, and I heard, hey, Wes, he killed that on a high fence. Wes, he shot it at night over there on the other side of the state.
Hey, man, I wish I'd seen some of them high fence deer. I don't even. I know a lot of people do it, but I don't want that. We all got enough money to hunt in clubs. The public land's what draws us because it's a challenge.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to go to the extremes to hunt down here and do this and do that, you're not going to like cut corners and do this and do that. You're just not.
Yeah.
You're wanting that thrill of the chase. You're wanting that hunt. You're wanting the wisdom to gain the wisdom to be able to hunt these deer capriciously.
Do you know if they ever got that deer off their property?
I know they do. It's in their lodge.
They got it mounted?
Yeah.
And they put it in their lodge?
Yeah.
What a bunch of
A friend of mine showed me a picture of it. Yeah.
oh my god!
They said they found a dead deer.
Oh.
But we had told the man I was talking to, I told him where it was. And we could see the antlers coming up out of the grass. And it was, I don't know, probably 75 yards onto their property. And it's a high dollar hunting club. And it's in their lodge now.
Probably a deer they had history with, I guess.
I
You
don't know. They didn't have history after that.
He's collecting dust now.
They can have it in their lodge all they want. I got the memory. But it was one of those deals that was just like I'd been seeing little little deer all morning. Then all of a sudden,
Wes, one thing I wanted to mention, because there's a couple things I want to talk to you about, and of course stories and something that I want to discuss, but can you talk about, first off, you don't run trail cameras down here really at all. You don't really run trail cameras on much of the public you hunt.
None.
It's all historical areas that you've hunted for decades.
Right.
So can you explain the process of, like, how does hunting the river bottoms change from like the hill country stuff that we hunt with you?
Well, the river is actually easier to hunt because there's traditional trails. I mean, you'll have a near trail right near the river, and then you'll have what we call the middle trail, and then you'll have a deep trail. And you know them and you learn them, and then you have these little corridors where you know these sloughs funnel deer through here, and you know because of this they come through here, and you know and just the wisdom of doing it for so long, and okay, well this guy killed a deer here, it was moving through here, and then you know when you index all that information in your brain over the years, you know you just know where to go, and a lot of it's instinct down here, and Michael Perry's hunting with us, and I'm constantly watching. I cut the photo, I crack up and everything, but I'm constantly watching. Well, I sent Michael Perry into a place yesterday, and it was I told him a random place. Well, I come to find out he went and got in the same tree I get in. I said, okay. So yesterday evening, I sent him to another place, and I was just checking. I was even less descriptive about where to go. And then when he told me where he was, is exactly the same tree I hunt out of. But it was that instinct. He had the same instinct I did. This will be my best place of advantage, you know. And after a while, your wisdom and your instincts will take over. And sometimes it's just instinctual where you go. And I noticed that me and Michael had the same instincts. We need to go here. You know, we need to go there. And it wasn't from looking at a map. It's just Michael had walked in. He said, okay. He just looked around. He figured it out. And he said, okay, I'll be better right over there. And he got in the same tree I hunt out of. And he took my 40 years of experience and he condensed it to like maybe 3 or 4 minutes. He said, okay, right over there. And he was right in the same tree where several really big deer have been knocked down right there. And, but you develop instincts. Instincts has got a lot to do with it. And you can't, you know, I was telling Andrew this morning, you two probably know more about deer hunting than anybody. And it's just the instinctual part. You said you wasn't a hunter there. But that was an instinct of mine because I knew they probably was traveling through there. That's the reason I'd went there the week before. And I thought, and because I put all the information I had about the land, and then I thought, well, they have to be going through there. And that was an instinctual thing. It wasn't like, okay, well, deer feed at this time, deer feed at that time, and moon's doing this. I knew the deer had to be traveling. That had to be a little corridor for the rut. And that's, and you took a deer. So instinct just comes with a lot of years of doing it, you know, and you know what's successful and what's not successful.
And that's probably like one thing that's really repetitive or repeatable is the instinct and personal experience and the history you have in certain areas that it's a slower buildup, but over length of time, like you talk a decade plus, you probably get more consistent in learning and hunting areas by doing that and spending a lot of time out there than just running trail cameras and chasing cameras around.
Right, because you're hunting different generations of deer over the years, but they were taught by the generation before what to do and which way to go and all that. So they actually have more of a traditional, like I'm talking about like a long distance pattern, you know, 10-year pattern that, you know, like where I'm going to go this evening. If I see a deer, I already know exactly where it's coming from, and I already know exactly the big log it's going to walk beside, because that is a trail I have been seeing deer on for 30 years. Now, it ain't the same deer, of course, but that deer was taught by his mom, you know, and it's just a generational trait. They have generational traits that they'll use a certain area.
It's kind of crazy the trails down here in the flatlands. Sorry to cut you off, but it's like what causes them to walk on these specific trails? Like you'll be walking through the woods and there's just a trail. I'm like, why are they walking right here?
Shortest distance between 2 points.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes
The
sense.
easiest way to get around a slope, the easiest way to get to food, the most cover. You know, it could be your trails could be several different for several different reasons. You know, and if you'll put them together, and I've noticed down here, if you put them together, they usually will go through the most cover over distance, or they go to a food source, or they go to a good bedding site, and the deer just keep using them year after year after year. Yeah, I mean, it's really traditional. You know, like on private land, like they move every year a little bit. The trails do. On the river, they pretty much stay the same. You know, the rut, of course, that don't matter because they could be out there in the middle of the river. But, you know, but traditional trails, it's generational trails down here.
All right, guys, we got another in the field tip for you today. One thing we're doing right now while we're out here scouting is looking at overlook spots and overlooked by us. One thing we always do while we're in the field is using our tracker on onX Hunt to be able to not only see where we've gone, but where we haven't been, and that's what we're gonna go look at. So today, we're actually gonna work up into a drainage that we haven't been to before. We've walked all around it, but we haven't been up in it. And again, it's a very important factor of using the tracker so you can see where you have been and where you haven't. A lot of times those places you haven't been is your overlook spots. So if you want to try onX Hunt, you can download onX Hunt today and use the code SOUTHERN and save 20% on your membership.
A lot of the trails I've seen are in some of those quieter spots too. Like they're not walking through the maples and the sycamores and all that. They have those big crunchy leaves that, you know, like when you go walking through it, it's so loud. A lot of those trails, you know, it's happens to be closer to the river where it's thicker, where those trees aren't, but still it's something to think about if they don't want to be loud either coming through the woods. So just like
There's always a purpose to the trail. And if it's worked for the generation before, this generation's going to use it. It's just, prime example, years ago in Coosa County, I was hunting there and on a little bitty 80-acre thing, and they cut all the trees. Well, the very next year, the deer were still using the same trails, but they were in the wide open. But they were so in tune with using those trails. I mean, we broke them from the habit because they were walking in the open then. But they still used the same trails. They were so in tune to, okay, here's what we do. We leave from here, we go over there, we go feed. And whether the trees were there or not, they used those trails. And to a point. Till we started knocking some of them out, and then they said, okay, we better rethink this. But they stayed on the same trails. They were so in tune to just their pattern.
And that's a big aspect of what you like about river bottoms is probably maybe the access is different because we're using boats, but also the historical movement of them constantly using the same areas, the same travel corridors, the same trails, pinch points, and it's like just more plug and play. Like you don't have to be here all year to know what they're doing. After 40 years, you're like, they're gonna be running this trail this time of the year. I can go in first time ever sitting there and kill a really good deer.
Well, it's like you were asking me and Scott. Everybody was asking us questions, and if you'd listened to me and Scott, we were saying the same thing because we knew how the deer moved on the land. Learning how they move on the land is a big deal, and they're actually easier to pattern on river bottoms. I know a lot of river hunters ain't gonna like that, but they are. They'll skirt them sloughs. There's some sloughs they're gonna walk the edge of. There's some that's gonna be funneling. You know, there's certain places they're gonna feed. There's certain places they're gonna stay when there's hunting pressure, and it's easier than hill country because access is not. But you know, as far as getting patterns on deer movement, I mean, you can pattern the deer movement through this stuff a lot easier than you can like hill country. And then once you get it patterned, and then once you see deer doing the same thing for 2 or 3 decades, I mean, you kind of, okay, well, that's what they do.
Mm-hmm. Well, that, and then also just the unknowing, especially because since you don't run cameras, of not knowing exactly what's going to come by. Does that do anything for you, like the excitement level?
Well, I went this year without cameras on purpose, and I wanted to see what it done. And actually, it's going to seem weird, but when I was using cameras, I'd see these big deer. It made me more excited to be in the woods, and I was in the woods more. I hunted a lot more because I knew that big deer was out there. And this year, without running cameras, I'm kind of back to where I used to be. Well, I hope I get one. You know, and the cameras actually prevented me from killing a lot of deer. I mean, it really did because, there might be a nice buck walk out there, and then I remember that one on camera, and I said, oh, yeah, I'm going to leave that. I don't want to shoot him. That big one's here somewhere. And the cameras actually made me want to hunt more. They made me get after a big deer because I would sit there a lot longer and everything else because I knew that big boy was there. I had proof of it. I had pictures of him, and I knew he was there. And this year it's been more like more of my passion of just I want to go hunting. But the other years I had a driving force. All right, I'm going to go get him. I got my target. I'm going after this target. I'm going after that. Well, I didn't have that this year. And, usually by the time bow season gets here, I'm so antsy, ready to go. I'm just, just ready to go. And this year it was like, well, bow season's here. I guess I'll go hunting. So actually, cameras can actually help in a lot of different ways. And both of y'all are fixing to agree to this statement. I'm anti-technology, but that's one technology that will get your butt in the woods. I mean, it will, because if you know that big deer's out there, you're going to go, you're going to sit longer, you're going to pass up those smaller deer, you're going to do a lot of different things because you know that big one's there if you're wanting a big deer. And it killed my drive not knowing the big deer and what they look like and everything, because I'd get a picture of a big deer, and after the acorns falling and everything, and he's still around, oh, man, it was just obsession. It was just, he was on my mind all the time, and I'm constantly scenarios. Just thousands and thousands of scenarios. And I mean, daily, all day long, I'm thinking, okay, where can I get him? Where can I go? Where can I? Well, this year I don't have that. And I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm thinking more of a general picture. Okay, well, deer should be moving here. Well, the bucks should be doing here. They're going to stay here. They're going to stay there. So, yeah, I'll go back to cameras next year, but I just wanted to do it for 1 year just to see what it would do. And it was a surprising effect, just to be honest, because I got to where I was so proficient with my cameras that the target bucks wasn't really hard to get. If I knew where they were and walking down the trail, do you know what kind of advantage that is? And I've been doing it so long that, I got every target buck that I was after. And it was kind of like, okay, I got it. And then I shot that one at pretty nice, real nice buck, and I got to adrenaline rush again. First time I've had it in years. And I thought, okay, well, I ain't doing cameras next year. I like this feeling. I like this. But you have drawbacks to that too, So, yeah, I'm. If you want to get after one and you want to be like obsessed with something and stay in the woods longer and everything else, yeah, get you a cellular camera.
Well, and to kind of go on that, just on that conversation, Greg has nothing really to do with rear bombs, but one of your mountain units that you hunt kind of back home, we were talking about this earlier and you told us about the hunt, but like you had cameras up there, but how many sits did you go not seeing deer in order to finally kill one of those bucks?
Yeah, I'd seen 2 deer in 16 hunts, and then had been trying to push to a certain area all year, trying to get there, and finally had scouted it a week or two before, changed up the access to, and then finally on the 17th hunt saw that buck chasing a doe. So it's like in 17 hunts I've seen 4, and got a lot of encouragement from people like Michael Pike, talking about some of the areas they hunt, because I'm like, am I doing something wrong? And they're like, no, that's just normal for the mountains. There's just so few deer. There's sign around. There's not much, just general deer sign. Like I've only seen 1 pile of droppings all year up there. And I'm not necessarily looking at every square inch when I'm walking, but if you're in a good area, you see a lot more than that in like the first 100 yards of scouting. So, but yeah, rubs and scrapes and all that. But then,
you never set foot on this land. How many deer did you see the first day?
I only saw 1.
What about yesterday?
1. I've only seen 2 deer since
Really?
I've been here. Yeah.
Really? Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Mr. Andrew over there, the pig slayer, how many have you seen?
18. No, 19 in 2 days.
14.
You've seen 14. I think I've seen 11.
And 10 of our 14 was yesterday.
But I also had to quit hunting at 9:45 because I killed a buck. So 1 a day. So
Rub it in.
Yeah, that's right. Dude, I'm telling you, I needed this hunt. This year's been a little rough for me. I needed that first day. Like I said, I've seen on the hoof in the stand 4 deer in Alabama this season. I like it. It's been rough.
Well, see, I seen only 4 deer, before 7:30 yesterday morning.
Yeah, that's
Because
what.
I saw 7 before 11 o'clock, but I'd seen 4 deer before 7:30, and 3 of them were bucks.
That's rough.
Well, that first morning out here, we got up in the stand. I climbed up right at sunrise, so I could kind of see where I was going. I picked my spot out, and I wasn't in the stand for like maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and I saw the first deer. I was like, okay. And it, like, when I climbed up, it was like a pine thicket meets a cane thicket meets a slough head. I was just like, there's no way I sit here and don't see a bunch of deer. And sure enough, it was like every 20, 30 minutes, there's deer. And I saw, I think, 10 that morning. And then the pigs came through, and I shot a pig. So it was a good hunt, man. I needed that. It was like a shot of happiness.
Yeah, the pigs are everywhere down here. 5 years ago, you wouldn't see a pig.
I was going to ask you about that.
And they have just swarmed this place.
So the first day, remember, everybody saw a deer and everybody saw pigs.
Well,
Everybody.
I spit on one. I got a new record. I've leaned over the stand in 2 mornings. I leaned over the stand and just kind of dropped spit on a pig, and then yesterday I done it on a spike. So I ain't shooting them, but I dropped saliva on them. I mean, I've literally had them just deep. The animals I've seen, it wasn't like I see them way out. They were like right up under me. I mean, right up.
And what'd that pig do when you spit on him?
Man, he took off like somebody shot him.
The pigs are spooky.
The deer, the little yearling spike, nothing. He still just kept feeding around, coming around and back at me and everything. He didn't do anything. That pig, man, it was like someone shot him.
Man, those pigs that came out by me, they were feeding around, popping those hickory nuts in their mouth for the longest time. They were
Sound
around
like
me
a country and gravel, don't it?
Yes, it does. It really does. And they were there for probably 45 minutes or so. I mean, forever. And
then
like Jacob even was trying to call me. I was like, can't answer. I'm trying to kill one of these pigs because there was one perfect big one, and it got like 15 yards from me. And it was about to walk out, and I was going to shoot it. And then it turned around and went back up in the cane, and I couldn't see it. And it fed around for 30 more minutes, and then it came out, and it got like right underneath me.
Well, me and Scott come in here one time, and we were hunting a place on the same side of the river y'all were in 2019. And I told him, I said, Dave, there's a pig over here in the swamp, and he's not liking me being here. And Scott's from here. He said, well, you're an idiot. I said, I'm telling you it's a pig. He said, no, it ain't. I said, there's a pig. He said, oh, man, we don't need hogs down here. He said, kill it if you can. Well, I didn't, but anyway. And that's how many's moved in just 5 years.
Yeah.
And now there's just hundreds of them down here.
I didn't know it's only been 5 years.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. You should never would see a pig in here. And I seen, the first one I seen, I was walking in. I was using a little red light. I knew where I was going. And I mean, I literally walked within 10 yards of it, big sow in the dark. Scared me and her. And I told Scott, and he said, hey, it wasn't a pig. I said, dude, it was 5 yards away. It was a pig. There ain't pigs down here. 5 yards. It was a big pig. And then, like, the next year, everybody started seeing them. And now it's just, man, they have just covered up.
That area that I walked into and shot the pig, you got to walk through a bunch of open timber. It's like, I don't know how far it is, a couple 100 yards back. And you cannot take a step from the riverbank to there and not step on some kind of rooting, or at least be within eyesight of some kind of rooting.
Looks like a farmer done come to there with a turning disc.
Dude, you roll your ankle in that stuff. Yeah. I mean, seriously.
It's gonna be a muddy mess today after this rain came through.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
Because
Dude, I just saw Caden back there throw his head back. Caden, the camera guy, he's off camera, but he just threw his head back and he went, "Oh my god!"
Yeah, but I mean, all that rooting, we walked through that. It's gonna be a nasty, nasty mess.
I got a short walk, so
I'm kind of jealous.
It'd be one of those evenings when you hear the mud dropping like every fit. Anytime you shift your feet, you hear it drop, hit the ground.
Yep.
Where I'm going to be hunting this evening, I could literally jump out of the tree into the boat. I'll be hunting right next to the water.
Well, that was one thing you've talked about for a long time, because we've never had you on talking about the river bottoms. It's always been more about hill country, and how, like, especially like the wolf pack method works up there. But down here, how many locals specifically hunt so close to the water?
All
like
of them.
Scott? Yeah.
Every one of them. They hunt within 20 yards. Just about anywhere you go on any kind of river system, if there's deer around, there's going to be a trail probably 10 to 15 yards inside off the water. And it's usually just the most worn out trail. And they all the locals, all of them, they don't walk. If they walk in 100 yards, they think they're in deep. I mean, they really do. And I'm like, when I first started coming down here, I was used to walking like y'all do now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, well, why are you hunting right there? Well, they're killing deer. And they just kept killing deer. And I went, okay. There's still a few places I'll walk in a little deep, but most of the time they're it's just like Mark/Greg here. He, I mean, how far you found the deadhead? How far away was it?
It was
from
10 yards off the river.
10 yards off the river.
Yep.
He found a big deadhead the day before yesterday. And
Well, I mean, just like it's all the locals hunt so close to the water, and you kind of understand why after, you start talking to like guys like Scott and even Wes, because you've hunted down here so much, I almost call you local now. Scott talks about all the time, which Scott can't join us on the podcast. He's a little camera shy, but he's like, I could jump out my tree into the boat if I really wanted to.
Well, most of the time when you're on a river system, and especially this river system, there's always a trail like 10, maybe 12 yards in, and it's usually a well-worn trail. And a lot of times deer will hit it just to keep from having to go around all the sloughs and, shortest point, A to B. They'll just run down the riverbank because it's built up, and they don't have to do this going through all the sloughs and all that and the marshes and stuff. They can just
Cut the river.
Yeah, it's just time saver for them.
Also, another thing about down here that to me is just interesting is there's so many people, like there's a lot of people that use boats down here, both, duck hunting, deer hunting, fishing, all that kind of stuff. And it's really different compared to other places that we've hunted in the South, which are river bottoms or lakes or something like that, where there's still people that have boats, but it's not as common of like pressure coming from the water as in, just driving in or walking to spots. And that's another thing interesting down here because it reminds me more of like when we've interviewed Jody Mesh from Louisiana, and like the way they look at boats is the way we'd look at a truck. Like that is how you hunt. It is you're boating into a spot, getting out with hip waders, walking into a spot and going hunting. And I feel like down here, and there's other parts of Alabama that's very much like that. And it's a really interesting kind of perspective between the two, which, Wes, one thing I wanted to bring up was I want to kind of get in some stories with you specifically on how you got introduced to hunting and got introduced to Scott, who you've known for a long time now.
God.
It's always a good way to start a story.
I'm trying to figure out a clean version. Me and Scott, we met in college, and we talked about it last week, and we don't even remember meeting, actually. But, I come in as an inside linebacker, and he was a guard, so we met, probably violently at first. And we became friends in college and things like that, and he carried me on my first deer hunt, and we just remained friends. We've been friends for 43 years now. Been hunting together, and he's the one. I've never been deer hunting. He carried me deer hunting, and he just him and his whole family. They're just different. You've seen the hospitality y'all received. Mm-hmm. That's the way his whole family is. I mean, sometimes Scott won't even be down here, and I'll be here, and one of his brothers will be here. Man, y'all want me to cook y'all something to eat? I'll run the store. Yeah, I'll have y'all's food cooked when you get back. And I was going. The first trip I made down here, his mom was, I guess if I described her, a debutante. She's very, very proper lady, and just sweetest voice. Now, Wes, and she was like that. And me and Scott, and myself and Scott, and one other guy, we'd went out hunting, and we'd come back. It was about 10 o'clock in the morning, and we walked in, and she had cooked us breakfast, but it wasn't cooking breakfast. You didn't eat at the table because you could not put your plate on the table. She had cooked so much food. I mean, that was just food from one end of the table. And I went, oh, my God. We're college football players. We can eat. And, man, there was every kind of food in the world on there. And I thought, man, this is pretty nice. I've never met people like this. And it's never stopped. Scott's cooked for us every time we come down here. And the family, I don't know what it is that, you come in, hey, you want me to cook for you? but they're just real fine people. They're real good people. They're real giving people. You know, they're not. But his entire family was that way. And over the years, me and Scott, we've kept in touch, and we, you know, hunt together every year. We try to make sure we hunt a few times down here every year. And he don't like coming hunting too much in the hills. But, yeah, they just fine people. Me and Scott, we've been buddies forever, man, through life's hard times and good times and everything else. But we've hit it off for years. We just got along. He's just a passive, good human being. He really is. I mean, he's giving beyond what anyone I'd ever met. You know, I was a trailer park kid and this and that, you know, and then come these people, hey, man, stay in my house. I got this house for you. Oh, we'll save this for when you come down hunting. You know, when you coming, you know. And I'd never met people like that until that point. And they're some of the best people on the planet, man. I mean, they're just really. It ain't Scott's a good man, but I'm talking about his whole family's that way.
What was it like hunting with them? Because I think Scott was the one that introduced you into hunting, right? Deer hunting.
Yeah, Scott's not one of these type that like tell you, you know. And I get on y'all about all the SMZ stuff and all that, but Scott's not the one to use terminology at all. He'll say, all right, go over yonder. But here's the way he would do it. He would be so descriptive, telling you where to go. All right, well, you know, don't go across that first log. You'll go across the next log, and there'll be a limb coming down the tree like this. He said, go up under it. Well, as soon as you get it, turn right, go about 30, 40 feet, and then you know, that you're going to see the tree and it's going to be this color and this. He's so descriptive. Well, I picked up on that. And over the years, I noticed his attention to detail in the woods. It's not like, okay, let's go over there and hunt these trees. All right, well, that third tree's a little different. That third tree's overlooking this. And that third, he will get down to so detail. And I think that rubbed off on me more than anything because when I hunt, I pay particular, real attention most people wouldn't do. Okay, well, there's a bottom. No, because I've learned it from Scott, I'm going to know just about every tree in that bottom, every trail, everything in it. And that's the way Scott is. You know, he can give you directions to a place, upriver, downriver, whatever, and he'll say, okay, well, you'll pass this tree and there'll be this crazy limb and it's going to be just like this. And you'll think, well, he's an idiot. I ain't going to be able to see that. And then you go down there and you go, damn. Okay. You know, but he's real descriptive. And I knew he was very successful at killing deer. He's killed a lot of deer. I mean, he needs to be in jail. Not from illegal stuff. I'm just talking about from the God amount of deer he's killed in his life. I mean, he's wiped out some of the deer herds in Alabama. But now he's moved on to a part of his life where he's real picky. If it ain't a 10-point or above, he just leaves it alone. And we're talking about public land. You know, nice big 8-point come out. It's like, it's an 8-point. And that's all you're going to hear from it. And but as he's gotten older, he's wanting the bigger bucks, and he's wanting to do this, he's wanting to do that. And he's like me. He's just, and it's not really like, hey, look at me, I killed a big deer. It's more of the challenge because we know it's a little harder deer to find, a little harder deer to kill, and it's a challenge.
What was your hunting attire when you first got into hunting?
Oh my God, we climbed up in trees, blue jeans, flannel shirts, and sometimes when it was cold, we'd take towels and wrap around our necks and stuff like that. I've done that a lot, yeah. It wasn't that, well, one thing, we was in college, was poor, but two, they didn't have clothes like they do now. I mean, you might find an old pair of coveralls and then wrap a towel around your neck, and then, you know, you'd try to do something for your face, hang something or do something like that, but that was it. You didn't have these big, nice shoes and all that. You just out there in tennis shoes. And it was cold. And, I mean, you'd be sitting there and, you know, your tree of choice was the tree you could climb. It wasn't, you know, oh, well, I'm going to do this because there's a SMZ here. And no. Okay, I can get to that branch. I'm going to climb up that tree so I can see better. You know, you play little games like spin on a limb, see how long it takes it to freeze. And that's the way we hunted, man. We had a guy hunting with us one time. I mean, this guy was massive, man. He was a big dude. Scott gave him a 10 gauge. And we were hunting on their farmland, and all of a sudden, boom, boom. Golly, he done got one. Well, that kept on for like an hour. And I was going, finally, me and Scott both come out of the woods. Man, what's he doing? He was out there shooting at blackbirds with a 10 gauge. Have you ever shot a 10 gauge?
No.
Oh, my God. I mean, it would bruise you on every shot. And this guy was so big, he was just shooting. He got bored deer hunting. He was out there shooting at blackbirds and stuff flying over with a 10 gauge.
With what, buckshot?
Buckshot. He used up all of Scott's shells. And because if you've noticed, I'll pick at Scott a little bit and get him excited and everything. But oh my God, we've had so many stories together. It's just been unbelievable. I mean, we've been through a lot. But he has taught me more about hunting than anyone, but he doesn't say anything. But just me watching him and understanding and trying to figure out, well, why is he going there? And then you get there and you look and I say, oh, I see why he's here. Them deer are funneling there. They're coming there. They're coming there. I see he's reading these sets here.
By the way, you're talking about kind of just Scott's personality. When I pulled up to camp a couple days ago, I walk in, Kaden was already here filming, and I come into the room in Scott's kitchen. It was you, Scott, and Michael Perry, and y'all are drawing paper maps. Instead of pulling up on X and showing aerial imagery, you're drawing paper maps of where y'all are going to go in the morning and how you're sitting here on this slough and that. And I'm like, start looking at it. And I think Andrew explains, like, this is what the therapist shows you. Like, what is this picture? What do you see in this picture?
No, the best part was when Andrew got here, because I don't know who did you hand him the map?
I handed
Yeah,
it
Wes
to
came
him.
walking up and he's
somebody-
like, hey, here's where you're going in the morning. I looked at him like, what am I looking at?
But Andrew, for like 15 minutes, thought that was his map for the morning. Of like, he was like,
He's like turning it around. He's like, where's
He
north?
thought
I was
they were
trying to
dead
figure out what
serious.
it was. I was like, okay, I think this part's the river. And then I walked over to Wes. He's like, yeah, it's the river. I'm like, okay.
Okay, y'all do know there was a time before Onyx.
oh yeah, we hunted.
Oh, yeah.
I hunted back then.
Yeah,
and,
me
and
too.
the only way you done it was but you're talking it out. Okay, well, see, now the deer come this way, and you're going to be sitting here, and then here's the river, and here's this. But if you look at it, it looks like spaghetti thrown on the floor. But it's there was a method to the madness. Everybody understood what we were talking about. So, but yeah, that's the way we used to do it.
And you're right, by the way, about Scott being attention to detail. Because when we were going to our spot that first night when we were planning it, Scott was like, yeah, well, you're going to go up there and there's going to be a couple little trees and there's going to be two great big old trees. You're going to look at those. And yeah, sure enough, we in the dark on the river, we cut our lights off. We're like, there they are.
Yeah.
Went straight to them.
Well, see, that's what got me about him. And I started noticing, I said, well, why would he need to know all this? And then over the years, watching him and, because he was killing deer, I wasn't. So I wanted to learn how he was doing and why he was doing certain things. And his attention to detail is unreal. He said, oh, well, you're going to see a tree that's shaped like this. Well, there's thousands of trees down here. And then you'll go and it'll be there. And you'll go, damn, I wouldn't even noticed it if he hadn't said it.
By the way, talk to me or explain to us the first time you thought you saw peacocks hunting.
Oh, man. Scott loves the story. And I tell it more than anybody. It doesn't embarrass me. It just shows you how green I was. They carried me on they were going to have a man drive hunt. And I was 17 years old in college. Never been deer hunting. And his brother, Steve, I went walking in with him and he stood me by a tree and he said, all right. He said, don't shoot anything but deer. I said, okay. He said, if it's a deer, shoot it, but don't shoot anything but deer. I said, okay. And he walks off. And I'm sitting there and there's fog out there in front of me and everything. It's dark and then there's fog and I see something walking, see stuff walking. It was a pretty good ways out there. And I'd never seen anything in the woods before. I mean, I didn't know. And well, anyway, I come back and I tell Scott and them, I said, man, I seen some peacocks. But they look like peacocks. They were about 70, 80 yards away in the fog. It looked like big old peacocks. And I mean, man, they started rolling. They were just laughing. And his brother Steve, he said, you talking about them wild turkeys that was walking around out there? And I said, wild turkeys? I didn't even know there was wild turkeys. I thought you just went and got them at the store. Man, I was green, man. I mean, green. And he said, and to this day, his brother Steve's passed away now, and he said, seen any more peacocks out in the woods? 40 years. They did not let me forget about the peacocks. But they kind of look like peacocks in the fog and way off. But I didn't know. I know what a deer looked like. I would have shot it, but I didn't know. But yeah, they give me the devil about the peacocks. But they look like peacocks to me.
Well, Greg's a big peacock hunter, if you didn't know. Yeah.
Greg loves a good peacock.
Yeah.
Hey, y'all remember there used to be peacock calls for locating
Yep.
turkeys, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember those.
I never had one, but
We
I've
had
heard
one. I
people
never
talk
understood. I'm like, why would a turkey come to this? But I don't know. It was a
was it
locator
just-
call.
yeah,
yeah, it's a
was-
locator call. But anyways, man, that's hilarious. By the way, Wes, I wanted to ask you about something too about hunting these river bottoms. But since you've been hunting here so long, and the trails are historical, what do you get hung up on buck sign at all? No.
I don't care nothing about it. I don't care nothing about scrapes. I don't care nothing about rubs. When I come down here, it's usually the rut. And that scrape and that and this and all that ain't going to mean nothing because that deer may be 5 miles from there by now. You know, I think more of the patterns they usually use when they're rutting, what the does usually do, where they usually go and stuff like that. And they'll start moving to the thicker stuff so they can get, you know, they're trying to get away from the deer and the bucks chasing them and stuff. And I worry more about that because the buck to doe ratio down here is just way out of whack. I mean, we've seen a lot of bucks, but we've also seen a lot more does. And, you know, and it's kind of like the old stud cow, you know. Sometimes the cow in heat will go to him, you know. And I have personally witnessed this down here. I had a big monarch come out on the peninsula down here, and he never would come out of the thing. But I seen the doe coming out through the end of the peninsula, and then right behind him, just like you dream it, man, here's this big boy. I mean, monster. He really was. I mean, he had me nervous. And I said, oh, my God. And doe's walking straight to me. Well, as she turned to come towards me, he stayed in the thick. He wasn't stupid. It was a rut, but he wasn't stupid. And when he got to the thick, he let her feet around out there. He stomped his foot, and she run back to him. And they went back the other way. I never got a shot or anything, but it showed me what the monarch, he was in control. She had come to him. You know, he was in control of that. He wasn't chasing her. He wasn't doing nothing. She was wanting to be bred by him. And I would imagine a lot of that goes on down here with the, you know, because the does are wanting to, you know, increase the likelihood of their children being good, strong children. So they're also looking out for the biggest, strongest bucks also.
Yeah, we were just at Mississippi State University recording those podcasts. You're talking about you like those guys. They had they did a study where they took like a big mature buck, like 160-inch rack, and then they had this yearling, you know, just a little 6-point rack, and they had them in an enclosure, and they had them in 3 separate enclosures. So there was the big buck, the doe in the middle, and then the little buck, and they would put the doe into heat, and she would basically go to which side of the pen, which one she wanted to breed with. Yeah. And of course she goes over to the 160. Well, so then they sedated the bucks, cut their antlers off, and switched them. So they put the 160-inch buck's antlers on the little buck, and put the little buck's antlers on the 160-inch buck, and got another doe in there, put her into heat, and she went to the little buck with the fake big antlers on him.
That's crazy.
Yeah, basically, what they're trying to do is see if antlers play a role in the doe choosing which exactly what you're talking about, and they found that she absolutely does.
Deer, it's about procreation, not recreation. They're wanting to further the bloodline, and they're wanting the biggest, strongest thing they have around to further their bloodline. It's just like your bucks. If you can find a mature doe, and I've always said that, if you can find a mature doe that has twins every year and she gets them to adulthood, she raises them, she's going to be the most prized piece of gold you've got on your property, because every big buck is going to try to mate with her because she is proficient in raising her children. And it's procreation. It's the further of the species. I mean, it's just built into them.
Yeah, we were talking about those does yesterday that busted me. when they came out in the morning. It was a big mama doe and 2 fawns, and she busted me in like 30 seconds. I was legitimately like 40 feet in this tree. My rappel rep's 40 feet, and it was like that far off the ground.
Yeah.
And I was way up there. I was like, I ain't getting busted, and she busted me. And, you know, like just sitting out in the woods, you're just sitting there. You got a lot of time to think. And I was thinking about that. And I'm like, you know, these deer literally, they just don't have anything to do except survive by eating food and procreating. They don't have anything else to do. Like their entire life is just eating and not getting killed.
They don't have hobbies.
They don't have hobbies.
No, but
They don't go watch football. They don't go shopping. They don't do, you know,
no podcast.
they don't do podcasts.
But then again, they're wild. They're not in a cage. You know, they get to make their decisions. And I know a lot of people. We all work on tendencies of deer, and they all have tendencies. But you have to think about all 4 of us sitting here. We all eat. We all do this. We all do that. We all sleep. We all do that. All 4 of us. We all do it in different ways. We all do it in different places. It's the same way with deer. You know, the deer's got certain personalities. They got certain this. They got certain that. So you'll never, no one will ever pin down exactly what a deer's going to do every day. They're just, because it's just like us. We're all different. We're all the same species. We're all males. We're all but we all do things differently. And I think deer are that way also. But you can work on the tendencies. Now we know Craig's going to do this today. Well, I'm going to eat today. He's going to eat today. You're going to eat today. So we can work on the tendencies of the deer. But as far as like, okay, well, this deer's going to get up and he's going to do this and he's going to be there every single day, you're not going to do it because they have their own unique personality.
One thing I heard growing up is if you knew, like, you happen across a girl you're interested in town, it's like, where are you going to find her again? You know, back days before cell phones, I guess. You're going to find her like at the grocery store, at a restaurant, you know, somewhere that people frequent. So it's kind of, that's how that applies to hunting. You got to hunt those areas that you know he might be there looking for the does because they're there often or whatever. It's the tendencies. You don't know they're going to be in that spot that day, but the more you go, more often you're at that spot, the more chance you have of running into them.
That's what I was talking about by rut corridors. There's certain way bucks will travel on land looking for the girls.
What examples in river bottoms would you give as a rut corridor?
Around the sloughs, anywhere where there's a funnel, those bucks they're gonna travel that funnel just seeing what else came through. Say, you know, we use the sloughs as funnels around here, and deer have no problem with water, but I think it's being a quiet thing, but they'll walk around them, and they'll walk the edges of them. Well, the bucks know that too, and the bucks will walk the edges of them catching scent. You know, if you've got a big expanse of woods and then it starts funneling down, okay, now if you want to find a girl and your nose is really good, are you going to search this big old area, or are you just going to go right here where you know she went through? You're going to go right there. And the deer are using, the bucks will use the funnel areas just like we hunt the funnel areas. They'll use them to find the does that way also. Or if there's a big bedding area, they'll come around that bedding area and they can smell everything in that thick and everything else. And then you've created a little corridor where they're going to be doing it. And the bucks are looking for the shortest way. It's just like his analogy about where would you find that girl? Well, if you know she's most likely at the grocery store, you're not going to go to the drugstore and the skating ring and the baseball park and everything before you get there. You're going to go straight to the grocery store. Straightest point. And the bucks will do that too. You know, they'll know where the girls are, and they use condensed areas where the does will be most likely condensed down into a smaller area. And then once you start figuring out where they are on the land, if you notice the way we've set all y'all up and told y'all how to hunt is around the sloughs. Because the sloughs will help move them into a funnel. I was talking to Andrew earlier, and I said, well, why don't you sit right here? And I've never been up there. But I know the tendency of these deer, that's most likely the best place for him to sit, because the tendency of the deer here is to follow those sloughs. And once you get to learning that kind of stuff now, then you're good. And once you learn that, the sign, how many scrapes have y'all seen?
3, maybe.
1.
I've seen a couple little ones and then the one that had the scrape dripper on it. So I don't know if it was a deer scrape or a human scrape.
Okay, we've seen 60 deer in 2 days. And y'all seen less than 10 scrapes? It's not a real big thing down here. You just got to learn to travel corridors.
I ain't seen a ton of rubs either.
No,
Not very many.
I thought I had, because that first morning when I got out of the boat, I hunted 40 yards from the boat and I saw 3 or 4 rubs. And then at like 9 a.m., I could see something way out there and I saw it. But other than that one area, I didn't see hardly any.
Well,
of
that
those
was
other
the thing
areas.
Jake and I were talking about yesterday, that we were like, we're not seeing buck sign, we're not finding buck sign, we're walking, trying to find buck sign. But for the amount of deer that we saw in this area, and you know how far we walked, for the amount of deer we're seeing, for the amount of area that we walked, I'm like, there are bucks in here. They're in here. They're just not laying down sign or whatever.
well, it's just like Jacob. I told you about, and this is how this is going to help you when you leave here. All right, like I was just talking about, you learn how deer move. I sent you to a place on a management area, and you killed a deer, but you said there wasn't no sign in there, right? But I had figured out that deer should move through there from down here. I learned that kind of hunting from down here, and I used it at another place. And I went and sat there and seen 2 shooter bucks one morning, and then Jacob came the next weekend and shot a real nice deer in there, a real nice 9-point. There ain't no sign in there. There ain't no scrapes. There ain't no rubs. But you start learning the tendencies of deer and what should be rut corridors, what I call them. And you learn that. And I applied it at another place. But I learned how to do that down here.
Which goes into your favorite word ever, SMZ.
SMZ, that's just the greatest terminology ever come up on planet Earth. It is a ditch. Nah, actually, I'm gonna pick at you about anything I can do, but yeah, it's just once you learn how the deer move, and that's goes back to just the wisdom of the land and everything. But I really believe you could carry me to some of those places y'all go, and if I get a read of the land, I'll go straight to where the deer are moving. I will, just simply because I know how to read the land, and I'm so used to knowing how deer use land and how they move across it. And I told you a story about Michael. Michael, apparently, me and Michael Perry, we had the same instincts because you send him in a place, and he went to the same place. He went to the same tree I did, and it's just after years of watching deer and seeing how they move on the land, you just develop an instinct, and you learn how to. I hadn't hunted over a scrape or a rub line or nothing like that in probably 35, 40 years. I just don't care. It just tells you a deer came through there at some point in time. I don't care. I want to know where he's at today. I want to know where he's going. I want to know. It's like Greg was talking about. I want to know where he's going to go and what's my best chance of where he's going to go. He may be he's going to go to the grocery store at some point. So I'm going to go to the grocery store and wait on him. But I'm not going to go over here to the ballpark that he goes to 2 or 3 times a year. I'm going to go to that grocery store he goes to probably once every 2 or 3 days. I'm going to wait for him at the grocery store, using a weird analogy, but you see what I'm saying? You compound your luck.
Yeah.
And the more you can compound your luck, the better. And that's like I've showed y'all on these sloughs and stuff. It's not just one little bitty, but if you notice, I try to put you in places where 2 or 3 places are meeting all at once. Yeah. And it's not habitat diversity, it's actual land patterns where 2 or 3 funnels may run together and put you there. So it just amplifies your chances.
Yeah.
Do you think on those, like the pinch points of the sloughs between if the bucks are going to check what's been through there, are they going straight from like this one to this one to this one, or are they cutting across like 3 or 4 trails to try to check that, or are they just going point to point to point?
Well, I think down here they do it kind of like we would. If we want to know where something is, we're going to go to the part where it all comes together.
Yeah.
It's just like I was telling him, like there's 3 or 4 funnels come together right there. Well, I think those bucks are going to travel those areas just checking because they know a lot of females have come through there and they might pick up on a hot one. And that's where they're going to travel. And
they can play their odds like we would too. They know if they go here, they can check 3 or 4 different trails that might come through one spot.
I know a lot of these people, they're trying to make deer hunting way too complex. And a lot of times simplicity is just a lot better. Go to that grocery store where they're going to be. They may go this way once every 6, 7 days. but go to that place where they're going to go every other day or every day. You know, and people try to make things just way too complex, and deer hunting is a simple sport.
And by the way, when we mention grocery store, I just want to clarify, we're not talking about hunting over feed. We're just talking about our food source. This is a spot that does are wanting to go to, which might be a food source or it might be a certain thicket, and that's where, you know, he's going to come spot check.
Well, yesterday morning I seen 3 bucks and 3 does. And you know why? Because I knew where I was at, and I knew it was kind of a travel corridor, but I also knew there was a whole lot of privet trees right behind me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's every one of them was headed to them privets. But I knew this time of year, the food source was getting a little weak and all that. They probably hit them privet bushes by now. And I was sitting right in front of the privet bushes. And that's the reason they were under my stand. They were going straight to the privet bushes that was right in back of me. So that was just, you know, knowing the food source was weakening down. So, you know, and the worst thing about trying to pattern a deer is that pattern's always changing. But it's still a perennial pattern because, okay, well, this time of year, they're usually doing this. This time of year, okay, well, this time of year, they just got through with primary rut. They're tired. They want to eat. They want to do this. They want to do that. Let's go to food sources. Okay, well, what kind of food sources we got in mid to late January? You know, you're leaving it down to privet bushes. And, you know, the acorns and stuff are 4 million squirrels down here. There's not a lot of that on the ground. So you're going to have to think about browse. What have they got to browse on around here? The grain fields that you set on, you're saying, what, 15, 20 deer or 10 deer or something, and privet bushes and things like that for food source. And that's, you hit those places.
Yeah.
But it's from being there year after year after year, knowing where they go to feed this time of year, that time of year, whatever.
One thing I know I want to discuss is gray gear experience down here. Because we ended up changing. You were thinking about doing a different hunt in Alabama. I was like, dude, y'all come do this one with us down here with Wes. It's an area you've never been to before. But what was your expectations coming in from like what it might look like on the ground versus what it actually did compared to like some of the river bottoms and lakes and stuff you've hunted back home? Like, what's the difference here? And then also, I mean, I know that first night we were kind of going over the guys and kind of figuring out areas we go to because there's a lot of land to jump around on. But like, what was like your perspective once you actually saw it versus like what you were expecting?
Yeah, so I've never hunted an area that has this sloughs like this, really. I mean, most of mine has been on bigger lakes or just a river that just, you know, goes up into hardwoods, you know, never having those. So until you see it in person, it's hard to understand, but it's just around those sloughs is the same thing as the river. The sun's getting there. That's where all the thick stuff is. Around the sloughs, there's green stuff for them to eat. And it's just different than like where we were last year. That was, I mean, there's still thick stuff along the river, but there's not really, well, the part that I hunted, I know you guys kind of hunted some swampy areas, but the parts I was hunting on the river hunt last year was just kind of bigger timber, a lot more privet hedge. I haven't seen much privet yet around here, but Michael Pike found some the other day, and he said it was too thick for a buck to walk through. I was like, well, maybe the does are still going through it or eating on the edge of it. But
that's what I was sitting on yesterday morning.
Yeah, he was like, I don't think a buck with a rat could even walk through this stuff. So, but yeah, I was kind of expecting that, you know, after looking at the aerial images, and it's you know, where we're hunting's 100% flat. It's a hill is 2 or 3 feet. Yeah. Like I was saying that.
Well, Michael Perry and them, they used to bankhead. Yeah, this ain't bankhead.
Yeah, so it's a lot of, you know, looking at the satellite image, you can't really tell how the tree types change. So yeah, like yesterday morning when I kind of knew the area I wanted to go to, I went in the dark, got climbed up because I knew a couple different. There was a funnel from between the river and a slough, and a couple different habitat types. Well, once I got climbed up and started getting daylight, I was like, that looks like a cedar thicket over there. I could see like pines and cedars, and you look at the satellite image and it doesn't look any different. It looks pretty much the same, but it changes. It went to those oaks mixed with those cedars, and I didn't really expect that. Again, it's that oak tree that we're trying to figure out what it is. It kind of looks like a water oak, and then it looks like a maple, but the leaves look like a red oak. So we're trying to figure that out. But yeah, I didn't really expect there to be a lot of oaks down there. That's the thing that was surprising to me. I expected a few water oaks and stuff like that. So I thought it was going to be more of the pines and cypress and stuff like that, but it's not really what we've gotten into.
Yeah, and you pulled a pretty bad joke on us. Sent us a photo of this buck on the front of the boat the first night or whatever.
A pretty nice 8-point.
Yeah. and we rolled up and or we'll get back to the boat ramp, and you and Pike are there pulling the boat out. Had my 1400 lumen headlight, turned it on. I was like, "Oh man, they got a buck in the front of the boat." Because like where Andrew was like, "There ain't no way he killed it." And come to find out, you found yourself a deadhead right there on the river, which we kind of mentioned that earlier. Which kind of gave us, perspective. First off, that sucker died. I mean, full body was right there next to the water, or in some of that thick cover. But like going into the hunt when you actually killed your buck, you're talking about the cedars and the red oaks, and that's one thing I've noticed about river bottoms. There's so much big canopy cover of like just real big trees down here, and a lot of river bottoms we've hunted like that. You can't see on aerial imagery. It's hard to see sub canopy habitat edges where like those cedars would be at, or the privet and stuff like that. So it makes it challenging to kind of find that stuff until you actually get boots on the ground. And you're actually looking like, oh man, there's a bunch of different edges or like switch cane thickets.
Well, see, here's another thing you don't realize. This year, there may be a whole lot of cane in a place, and you think, okay, well, I'm going to walk down these canes, and I'm going to go here, and it won't be there next year. Seriously, it'll move. It may have been a lot of flooding in there that year. It may have been too dry, whatever. For years, I used to walk in this one place, and I'd walk to all the canes, and then I'd cut down the canes, and then one morning I was kind of caught myself like, where am I at? They were gone. I mean, the habitat will change in here, depending on if it's a drought year, if it's a wet year, and all that stuff. This year is a very dry year, and it'll change. I mean, the habitat will change. I mean, it may be super thick this year and like nothing next year because the water done killed it. But it will change. You don't go by when you're trying to pick out landmarks to walk in. Nothing below 10 feet you better pick. I mean, don't say, oh, okay, well, I'm going to walk to the canes and then I'm going to go this way. Because them canes might not be there next year. They may have been too dry or too wet. So you better pick out some kind of landmark that's higher. Because you can't depend on that. You just really can't. Because I did for like 10 years. I'd walk to the canes, then I'd turn, then I'd walk down the slough. Well, I'd always just walk to the canes because you couldn't walk through them, so I knew it was going to stop me. Then one time I was walking through there, and I then caught myself, and I'm done way past where I wanted to hunt, and I was going, well, what? And then the canes, all the little undergrowth, the Swiss cane things, they were just gone.
Flood water pulled them out.
Yeah, but I found out that place was underwater for over a month that year. It was a real wet year. I guess it just washed them out or killed them out or something.
Well, and kind of on that point, Greg, you're talking about you noticed the cedars mixed in with the red oaks. So walk us through kind of that hunt because you ended up having a pretty action-packed hunt. We were gunshots going left and right. We're like, what is going on over
Western.
Yeah. So I climbed up in the dark kind of, and I was only about 100 yards from where I'd hunted the evening before. So I kind of knew what it looked like. And again, once it started getting daylight, or even right when I got up, I could, the sun was starting to brighten up the sky right behind it, and I see like pines and stuff. And I'm like, I haven't seen a pine tree since I got here. And like I look, there's a couple pine cedars. I'm looking in the binoculars. Everybody else kind of starts seeing some deer. I'm still sitting there just twiddling my thumbs, hadn't seen anything. And at like 9:45, Michael Pike was about 400 yards from me, and he had heard a buck grunt and kind of pushed some does my way along the river. And I'd been thinking for like an hour. I was like, I should get down and, go see if I can intercept them, but I didn't want to mess him up. Well, like 9:45, he's like, you should just go like slip down the edge of the river towards those deer. And then I was like, maybe he's wanting me to bump him his way. I didn't call him out on it, so maybe he was. But anyway, I was like, I thought that. I didn't want to mess you up. And he said, dude, no, if you get a crack at him, that's cool. So I hit the ground. And instead of going that way, I was like, well, I want to go check out what these cedars look. If it's an actual thicket, what's going on. And as soon as I started heading that way, I got into those red oaks mixed with those cedars. And then you can just see real far, but you're under like that tight canopy, like you're saying. And you can see way better on the ground than you ever would be able to in a tree. So I get into the mixed cedars and whatever those oaks are. And I'm just kind of standing there looking around. I can see like 150 yards. Well, I see something coming, and it's a pack of pigs. So I just squat down. It's a mama with like 15 little ones. And these pigs here, which it's kind of like this everywhere, but if they're not feeding, they are moving. They are going to where they want to get to. Well, fortunately, they're coming right towards me. and they get like 10 or 15 yards, and I shoot the lead one, and they wheel around, and I rack another round, shoot again, and they keep on running out of sight. And about the time they get out of sight, I'm looking, like, seeing if the one crashes, and I don't see it crash, but I know about where they went to. I look behind her, and here comes another pig. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I've got my third round in the gun, and it gets like 15 yards, and I don't even remember what I was doing. I know I said, hey, and when it stopped, like for a millisecond, it left here again, like it just as fast as the other ones did after I'd shot. And I know I was like grunting, doing all kinds of stuff to get it to stop, and it would not stop. And I'm like, oh, well, whatever, one pig down. I was pretty sure the one was down over there. Well, literally like 10 seconds after that, where that pig came from, I look and I'm like, oh, there comes a deer. So I'm already squatted down, like not near a tree or anything. And I just lay down. Cause like even squatted down, the deer is going to see me, like no cover, anything. Cause like it's pretty open under all that stuff. So I'm squatted down, I lay down, and I get my binos up. I'm like, oh, it's a buck. I'm like, he's coming my way. I'm like, oh, it's a legal buck. So, it was pretty exciting. I laid prone on the ground, and I think that what happened is he heard that commotion over there with those pigs, me doing whatever I was doing. Maybe it was when I walked up, it got his attention. He walked straight to me 10 yards away and starts snapping, licking branches, licking them, breaking them, starts pawing the ground at 10 yards, and I'm just laying there like this. And I'm like, this is gonna be fun. So, I mean, I watched him for a minute or two. It wasn't long, and he finally kind of steps out from behind just a couple. Like there was one of those red oaks between me and him, really. And once he stepped out, I just shot him, and he ran over and crashed. So it was 10 yards on the ground. It was fun.
Well, it was crazy because he came in right after the first shots. Because I'm hunting pretty freaking far from you, and I hear, and I'm like,
It was loud.
yeah, and I thought it was Andrew shooting, which we're far from you guys. And I was like, Andrew, was that Andrew? And then all of a sudden it was like Mike put in the group message like, oh, it was Greg. But it was like shot 1, 5 seconds, shot 2. And I'm like, what is good? Let's see it in
Then it was a
Western.
couple minutes.
And then it like paused, and I'm like, trying to text, who is it? And like, oh, it's Greg. Well, I try to call you.
I didn't even have my phone with me. It was back at
and then again, this is all like within a couple minutes, and then we hear a third shot, and I'm like, what is going on, dude? Like, he's got to be in the sounder of pigs. Just let him have it. Then you finally called, or you put in the group message, you shot a buck. I'm like, so he shot a pig. First you say like, oh, I shot a pig or whatever. Then I shot a buck, and I'm like, that is crazy. I mean, a little 2-for-1 action like that, quick.
Yep. So then I went and, made sure I got the pig. It was the sow that had all the little piglets with her, and then just went and got in the boat and actually went around to get the deer. It was actually closer to go up in the slough to get to it from rather than drag it to the river. I was going to pack it out, didn't have pack with me, and I was like, it's worth going back to the truck to pack it out. And I was like, I'll just gut it and get it out of here. So finally got it checked in. They're on my naughty list.
You can vent on here.
Alabama DNR is on my naughty list. So if anybody is a non-resident, they will understand the struggles, because I know all my buddies, it's the same deal. So with the Alabama app, like when you go to check something in, if you're a non-resident, instead of letting you do it in the app and giving you that temporary number if you don't have service, it opens up in the browser. So you it finally loaded the check-in thing. I was able to put everything in like really slow. Like I'd try to put the date and it wouldn't take it. Like it just wouldn't even allow it. So finally I got that, hit submit, and I get the Safari thing that's like, this page cannot be loaded or whatever. So then I'm like, well, I need to call this in, but then I can't find the number. So I actually called my wife to get her to help me log in on the app for her to check it in for me. Because we've done that before for her to get into my app, do it if I don't have service or whatever. So I call her and I'm like, look, I need the phone number. So she tries to text it to me, but the service is so bad, it takes forever for the text to come through. So finally I get the number from you, like you and Michael and my wife finally send me the number. So then I got to call in. Well, the service is like I said, it's bad. So the lady on the phone's breaking up. I'm like, I think she's giving me because it took her like a minute to read out the confirmation number. So anyway, so finally I did get it checked in before I started gutting it and all that. But it's just it's a crazy process that it's a completely different system for non-residents, and I don't understand that. So I got a bone to pick with those guys.
Yeah. and
airing your complaints.
talk, what was the buck like? Because you got to talk about his cool point and everything.
Oh yeah, so it was a 6-point frame with a 7th going off the back of its base, which was the deadhead that I found, which is a more massive 8-point, has the same exact point coming off his base, and I killed him like 200 yards from where I found that buck. So I don't know, it's a cool looking buck. I had people text me via or on Facebook like, "Hey, I think I know where you killed that deer. It looks like every deer I've ever seen down there." So,
Were they accurate?
yeah,
Oh, really?
that was Parker.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
He was like, "You killed this here," and I was like, I just sent a smiley face, and he was like, "Man, every deer I've ever killed down there looks just like that." I was like, "Yeah, it might have been where it was."
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, no, I mean, that was like the one I saw, like, came out when me and Caden were sitting, and he came out, and I was like, man, he looks like a pretty good deer. And then I was looking at him, and I was like, he don't have freaking brow tines.
Yeah, that deer from the, he wasn't zoomed way in on it. Like, it still looked like a nice buck.
Yeah.
It sucks that he wasn't a legal buck. So
Yeah, no brow tines. Had
Maybe-
a little bump for a third time, starting to, he probably grew out next year.
that was on his beam, or that
Yeah,
was a brow.
It was on his
Okay.
beam. No, it was slick on the brow. I was looking at him through the binos, and I was like, come on.
Good old slick 4.
Yeah, he's out there just grunting, but growing up a little spike. But that's awesome though. So I've been hoping and praying this whole time. I'm like, please let Greg needs to kill it here.
I've been hoping you kill one.
I know.
You got the cameraman here.
Listen, man, poor Caden's been following around Jacob since Kansas, trying to film Jacob kill a buck. Because I was telling you this, Greg. All these years we've been doing this podcast and everything, he's self-filmed, I think, one buck that he shot, but he's never shot a buck on camera with one of our camera guys. And I've shot like 2 or 3. I've shot 2 or 3. Caden's talking behind you can't hear about the podcast, but yeah. So I'm like, Jacob really needs to kill a buck on camera.
Yep.
So Caden's got to keep going with Jacob. But I want to hunt with Caden. But I know as soon as Caden comes and hunts with me, that Jacob's going to kill one. So, anyways, what are you doing this afternoon?
Trying to go kill a buck.
Well, I hope
Going
so.
to the same spot.
We're going to figure it out once we wrap up the podcast, kind of the thought process. The wind's not going to be super great, but we can circle in there. There's a couple the more Wes has talked about, there's another spot that's actually very close to where Andrew sat yesterday that I don't know, you haven't gone in there where all the sloughs come together. Jason, so like where you sat? Like right next, it was off your left shoulder.
We'll look at it on the map.
Okay.
I probably did walk to it.
It looks real good on the map. Just all those edges, all these sloughs come together in one spot. I'm like, that'd be perfect. But anyway, now see, I've never killed a deer down here. I've come down here maybe 3 or 4 trips, but most time it was in the past. It was back when I had I was actually working a normal job, so I'd come down like Friday night, hunt a Saturday, maybe hunt a Sunday morning, bounce. And we'd see a bunch of deer, but it's like just I never seen a shooter down here. But
and then usually it was early in the season.
yeah, no, it was earlier in December. I've never come this late down here.
That's early year.
Or not December, January. Earlier in January, like first week of January after Christmas, come down here with you.
Yeah.
But it was one of those things. I'd leave and then Wes go kill one. And I'm like, God. I'm like, I want to see a boat on the boat. I want a buck on a boat.
One time he was sitting in a place and he was only half a mile from me. I had 3 or 4 bucks chasing does around. I mean, I was watching a circus of bucks chasing does. I'd text Jacob, seen anything? Nope. And man, I've got them all over me, and they're running everywhere. And we're a quarter mile apart, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's crazy rutting going on where I'm at, and nothing moving. Where
That's
he's
like
at.
one of the biggest complaints I hear. Like guys talking about, like, oh man, the rut didn't happen this year. The rut was slow. And we've talked about this with, I don't think it was with Bronson Strickland from Mississippi State, but there's someone we talked to recently about, like, you could literally just be off 200 yards and it could be either the best day you've ever had hunting, just deer activity, bucks chasing does, and 200 yards away you might not see a single thing.
Yeah.
Because again, they're just
y'all were talking to the guys from Georgia.
guys. From,
I heard.
oh yeah. Yep. Absolutely, yeah. I think it was
Brian Murphy.
Brian Murphy and the guys. Yeah.
Yep.
Dr. Carl Miller. But yeah, I mean, I think that's so true because again,
You've seen that with you when you and Wesley were hunting that place, and
oh yeah.
you were seeing all kind of rutting
And
activity.
he was-
he's 250 50 yards, he ain't seen a deer.
No, I ain't seen a deer. That's when I shot that other buck a handful of years back. Crazy chasing, bucks chasing does, and yeah, he's 250 yards away and ain't seen a deer all morning. It was like Scott when me and him were hunting down there, and I shot that buck a couple of weeks ago. I didn't see anything until I shot the buck. That was the only deer I've seen all day. But he came from Scott's direction. He's like, man, I ain't seen nothing at all. I'm like, well, I was the same way until 9:45 when he stepped out and shot him. So that's the one thing about the rut is like it can be so hit or miss. But like when you hit it and you're in the right spot, the right time, it's like, dude, that's the kind of the days that everybody dreams of.
Well, see, that's what I'm gonna move a pretty good bit of weight today because the bucks will move to the group of does that's in heat, and and I think that's what's happened to where we were hunting because we kept seeing nothing but small yearlings and little. They were yearlings. So where's the mamas? Where's the big bucks? And I think they've chased and they've pushed off to other areas instead of that one little area. So what we're going to do this evening, we're going to try to find areas a little further out that the rut may be wide open. They may be chasing in those spots. So it's a theory. It should work.
Well, perfect. Well, I think we'll kind of wrap it up here. Whisper, again, appreciate you letting us come down here and do this hunt and letting Greg come down, the old non-resident.
Talking about Mark.
Oh, Mark, I mean.
We've had a great time with Mark this week.
I still hadn't told the story why I'm calling him Mark, though.
I don't think anybody even knows.
I did.
Scott just randomly made it up.
Scott just walked up to him, started calling him Mark, and I was sitting there going, and I mean, he called him Mark like 2 or 3 times, and I'm going, is nobody going to catch this? And he's not saying anything.
I didn't know he was talking to me. He was calling me Mark.
And I was
I
calling,
know. I was looking around. I was like, "Is there another guy here?"
yeah, and they just kept calling him Mark, so now he's Mark.
Mark Maher.
Yeah,
It only even registered with me the last time. So like the other times I didn't even hear it.
he called you Mark like 3 or 4 times, and I'm sitting there going, pretty sure he's not a Mark.
Mark,
I don't think there's a Mark here.
Yeah, it's like, Mark, when you cooking those elk fajitas?
Oh,
I can understand if he'd mixed him up with someone he hadn't met before, like Caden or whatever. No, he's just a random Mark. There ain't even a Mark down here.
Yeah.
Hey, you're gonna
That could have a lot to do with that stuff they were drinking.
You might need to cut in some of the footage of cooking the elk fajitas.
Oh,
because
dude, Caden got some slow motion footage
man.
of
showing off my chef skills on the
Dude,
black
those were
stuff.
good.
Straight hibachi.
those were good.
The elk were good. Well, that was really good.
We ate every bit of it.
That hit the spot after being out there all day yesterday, coming back. Oh my goodness, that was good.
We heat up about 30 of those tortillas.
I ate most of them. I only ate like 2 or 3 of the elk, and then I started on that sausage.
The sausage is good.
And
Kaneka sausage.
I was making a hot dog fajita.
Some onions on it.
Yeah.
All I needed was a little bit of mustard. Yeah,
Man,
We eat good when we come down here.
that's true.
that's right.
It's like brought a ton of food. What are you? I'm so. Katie's behind the camera, holding up
A backstrap.
Yeah, backstrap, getting it ready, taking it out of a bag.
We got a backstrap for lunch, apparently.
Yep. But anyway, no, Wes, appreciate you inviting us down, and of course,
problem.
Scott's not here on the podcast or anything, but appreciate Scott let us come stay at this place and hanging out because it's always fun. I mean, it's fun.
Y'all got it rough. Y'all roughing it pretty bad.
Yeah.
If you staying in that back bedroom? You been in the jacuzzi yet?
No, I have not.
Okay.
There's a jacuzzi.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I was just wondering how bad y'all had it down here.
Yeah, man, this is what you call roughing it.
Yeah, I used to tell people, I said, yeah, I'm going to be down there roughing it in the swamps, and I'd come down here to this. He just keeps this place just for hunting. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, this is roughing it.
Yeah.
Oh, dude. This is the place, man. This is the place.
But we still need to get out and, like, kill a deer.
All right, let's go kill a deer.
Yeah,
go
appreciate it. Well, appreciate everybody watching the podcast. Thank y'all for listening. We'll catch you back here on the next episode from the Southern Outdoorsmen in Wes. You can say it?
Stay southern.
Y'all stay Southern.